To begin with, I'd like to make some apologies for some changes in this. The changes of the result as I just announced in the email. So this is just ongoing work, preliminary results, so like changing day by day, but the topic is the same. So I'm trying to look at what is some consequence of this parental leave legislation in Korea. So, and do I have like 30 minutes? 30. Okay. Yeah, all right, thank you. So this is just the outline. So parental leave. So probably most of you are familiar with this parental leave institution. And this is considered as a really essential part of this family-friendly policies, especially for gender equity and also for promoting the balance of working life across countries. But even though most of us we agree that it's an important part of this government, but there is some things that are not clear about how generous it should be. So the more generous the parental leave legislation is more desirable or not. So this is a question that still we have as of today. So if you look at the graph on the right, so this is the variation of the level of generosity of maternity leave and parental leave together available to mothers, new mothers. So on the horizontal axis is the total paid leave available to mothers. So this is the payment, the cash benefit during the leave. So from 0 to 100% of the replacement rate of the income. Whereas the vertical axis, the maximum duration of job protected and paid leave, number of weeks. So the duration of maximum leave varies from 0 to 3 years. And again, the replacement rate is also varies from 0 to 100%. But most of the countries, they range around somewhere like 1 year of leave, and the income replacement rate is like 40% to 60%. So,
is it to mothers or to parents?
Just to mothers. So this graph is only for mothers, and so just to show that some variation across the countries. So we can draw the same graph about the fathers that will be a little bit different.
But parental leave should be for both parents, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we can, so parental leave, some countries, they restrict some part of it for one mother or father. So to make some fair comparison, we make just mother or father, and then we count. So whether the parental leave is available to mothers, just to compare the countries. But you're right that the parental leave, of course, is available for both parents, but just to make some comparison across countries, so this graph is drawn only for mothers. Yeah. So there's a wide variation. So the question is whether for example, the more generous in terms of the duration or in terms of the payment during the leave. So generous is better or not? So many researchers, they looked at so is there any good reason to expand this parental leave legislation? And most of the studies, they looked at the impact of the extension of the maximum duration. So because there are more of the variation across countries, so these studies generally find that extending this maximum duration normally do not have much positive or negative effect in the long run on women's employment. So in terms of labor market attachment, it doesn't have much harm, but it doesn't have much good either. In terms of the fertility, so there are some results are mixed. So extend the longer parental leave may be good for having the second birth in the case of Austria in the 1990s, also, but not much impact in Norway during the 1970s to 90s. So, but on these, there's a large body of studies on this issue, but at the same time, there are very few studies on the impact on this cash benefit dimension. So if the more cash benefit during the leave is good for employment or fertility or not. So a few studies, like one study in Japan and one study in Belgium, but other than that, there are not many. So, and this dimension, like the cash benefit, so that's the focus of the my topic. And I'm going to look at Korea, and as you are all aware, that Korea is experiencing really lowest low fertility in recent years. But also, I'd like to draw your attention to the situation in Korea in terms of the work-life balance. So if you look at this graph, so I have horizontal axis is total fertility rate, and vertical axis is the female labor market participation of the reproductive age. So the series in the very down, that's the Korea, and as you can see, Korea dramatically, there's a total fertility rate declined from about 3 children per woman in 1980 to less than 1 as of today. But at the same time, the female labor market participation increased over time, all the way down. So what happens is not just the fertility decline is happening, but also women are entering the labor market more and more. So it's like the trade-off between work and life. So it's not like they can have both, but they have to choose. They have pushed to choose one, so mainly the labor market over having children. But if you look at other some European countries like France, Austria, Sweden, over the last 2-3 decades, somehow they managed to promote not just the fertility, but also the labor market participation. But of course, there is a varying degree of experience, but the direction is like the right-hand side and upward, not one side, like either up and left or down and right. So question today is that, okay, so we will look at the parental leave cash benefit expansion over the last decade, and whether that had any impact on female female employment and fertility in Korea. And so as I will explain briefly how they expanded over the years. And this parental leave policy is one of the major policies in these family-friendly policies in response to low fertility over the last 20 years. And it's very much it's always the end or early of the year when they have released a new number of TFR, that like whole country is like shocked. So now last year it was like 0.78, and it's projected to be a bit lower this year. So another sensation expected next year. Okay, so parental leave. Parental leave has many different characteristics. One of them is that the maximum duration of non-paid leave, like job-protected leave, and duration of paid leave, and also cash benefit during the leave, and so also whether it's covered by the public sector or private sector. So most of the European country and Australia, they have this public sector that parental leave is universal parental leave is offered. Of course, there are, we can think of some justification of the parental leave equity issue and efficiency issue, but I will skip this for this audience. Of course, the benefit of cost of parental leave, okay, well, probably you are all aware of this. So for workers' point of view, of course, it's beneficial to continue their work without interruption. And also, it's nice to have to take care of our own child. But at the same time, taking a longer leave may not be good because it comes with some income loss, and human capital or some skills may be depreciated, or there may be some disadvantage in promotion, or some after return they may be relocated to some place where they don't want to be. So, but at the same time, firm's point of view, also there is benefit will be they can recruit they can retain those workers otherwise would have lost. And or also the cost, also there's a cost, that is they have to do the kind of the labor management cost, like hiring substitute workers or organize the burdens among other workers. So the outcome of parental leave take-up and also the consequence is probably the result of interaction between these workers and firm together. Okay, often we talk about workers only, but firms also, reaction also is important to be looked at. But so given those firms aside, we try to increase some incentive for workers so that they can take the leave more. Okay, so that's the situation. So what do we expect? Parental leave, we can make the parental leave more generous, like either by extending the duration of maximum leave or benefit, cash benefit. Then probably workers, and they feel more advantageous to take the leave, and so the take-up rate and leave duration may go up. As a result, what would happen to employment and fertility? Well, of course, the best outcome will be they work more, and also at the same time they have more children. But that may not be the case if there are some other conditions. So if they are very restricted on childcare choices, or they have other difficulties after coming back from parental leave. So either employment and fertility, one of them may be good, but the other one they may have to sacrifice. In other words, there may be some trade-off. So it depends. So those kind of the outcome may depend on other institutions. So like the quality of childcare service or regulation of working hours. So it's kind of empirical question whether, in particular context, the parental leave expansion may have other kinds of consequence. Recent studies, a case of Japan, not much impact. The income, so there are a few cases where the parental leave, the cash benefit was raised. In Japan, it didn't have much impact on female employment. In Belgium, it was about the maternity leave benefit, about 90 days. It didn't have much impact on female employment, but fertility rate, like the second child, in 5 years, the incidence increased. Okay, let me skip the German case. Okay, what about Korea? So Korea introduced this parental leave in 1988, and it was like non-paid leave, but since 2001, it became paid leave, but the payment was very small, but over time, they increased over little by little. As of today, any employee who has child under 8 years old is eligible, or also who is pregnant. And also someone has to be registered by the National Employment Insurance, so which is the national the unemployment insurance in Korea, but it's called the employment insurance. Yeah. And then this national employment insurance, they covers about 91% of the eligible employee as of last year, but it has been increased over the last decade. So most of the eligible workers are covered, but not everybody. Okay, so the important is the cash benefit, how it expanded. Koreans, I don't know. The Korean government wants to make it as complicated as possible. So they trying to increase, but in some strange way. So we have three dimensions: upper limit and lower limit, and also income replacement rate. So I'll show you these three different dimensions. So this is the upper limit. So this is over the years from 2001 to 2022, they introduced this cash benefit, but from 2011, they introduced the income replacement rate. So it's not a flat rate, but more like 40% of the income, but with upper limit. So as you can see, there's step by step, and also strangely, they increased the cash benefit for the first 3 months, but not the other months, and so forth. And the parental leave in Korea is like 1 year, so that's the same. So that's a bit complicated. In addition, there's some public concern that men don't take fathers don't take the leave. So they're trying to increase the more benefit for second leave taker, which is supposed to be fathers. So the percentage at the upper limit is a bit higher. Same as a lower limit, it's changed, but not much. And then this is the replacement rate. As you can see, the major one is like 40% in 2011 and 80% as of 2017. So this is complicated. I'm trying to simplify as of the average cash benefit over the entire leave, maximum leave, so 1 year. Okay, so then it becomes like this. So in as of 2007, so horizontal axis, this is a wage level. So like it's in Korean, it's a monthly wage. It's 1 million, 2 million, 3 million Korean won, which is equivalent to about let's just make a simple case. 1,000 won is like €1. Okay, so to make it simple, it's not exact, but let's just. So that's a horizontal axis. So vertical axis is a monthly benefit. So as the income increases, they get more benefit. But that wasn't the case until 2007. And then 2011, they introduced this replacement rate, so 40%. And then 2017, 2019, they increased more and more. Okay, so basically, so this is the situation. Because we want to make the causal inference. So what is the causal impact of this increase in cash benefit? What we are going to do is trying to look at this kink area. So as you can see, especially the upper limit. Of course, this upper limit is below the median or mean of income distribution. So it's a bit more of entire distribution, a bit lower income, but still there's a kink. So at this kink, around this kink, the workers' wage level is about the similar, but by nature, someone by luck, they get more benefit as a replacement. But someone who is above the threshold, they get less benefit in terms of the share of their wages. Okay, so we are comparing those at the kink, the right-hand side workers and the left-hand side workers. Okay, yeah, so that's what we are going to do. So over the years, this upper limit and lower limit and replacement rate increased like this. So mainly important is the upper limit and the replacement rate, because most of the many workers they are binding, and this is not really sharp the steps, but it's a little bit of, there is a transition period, because if there is some change and then there are some people who take the leave in between these two regimes, then they get the partial change. So they receive some changes, but not for the whole year, for the whole period. So that's why we have some kind of a partial steps in this increase in this upper limit and the replacement rate. And this is the nominal the case. And let's look at the real, in terms of real this benefit. And the real benefit looks a little bit different because of the inflation. The real value becomes a bit depreciated over the years if the nominal benefit fixed. And now in the middle series is now what is the actual level of income, level of benefits people can expect. So now on the horizontal axis, they are the birth of month. So the female employee who gives birth, let's say January 2013, what's their average benefit that they can expect the workers in this national employment insurance. And as you can see over the years, the average benefit people can expect is increased. So from like lower bound to really the upper bound in recent years. So really those people who take the leave, they are binding this upper limit. Okay, so so we are going to use this national employment database. This is the administration database. Therefore, it's not really user-friendly. It's for administration purpose. So we have maternity leave and parental leave, and employment history and workers' workplace information. So we have information about all the female or male workers who gave birth between 2010 and 2022. So early of 2022. And so we are excluding those people, the workers who gave birth to twins. So in Korea, maternity leave is for 3 months and parental leave is for 1 year. So if someone received the benefit, cash benefit from maternity leave, then we can consider the person as giving birth. Okay, so that's how we identify for someone who gives birth. And among those people who give birth, now they are eligible for parental leave, and we can check whether they took the parental leave or not. Okay, and then a few issues. So this data set do not have information on the household members. So we do not know whether a female worker has a husband and whether the husband is in this the database or not, or how many children she has. And so that's a big caveat of this data set. And especially it's an important issue for male workers, because for male workers, we cannot identify who gave birth. So whose wife gave birth, so we cannot identify. So that's why we only focus on female workers in this study. Okay, so over the years during this period from 2010 and 2022, more and more people took the parental leave. So among those female workers who gave birth in 2010 to 2022, the take-up rate increased from 60% to over close to 90%, 85% over this year. Duration also increased, like about 6 months, 7 months to 8 or 9 months, so gradually. So over these years. And most of women take the leave for 12 months. So if you look at the distribution, how many months they take, most of them take a full years, whereas men do not take much. Actually, the men's take-up rate is very low compared to women, like 5 or 10%, less than 10%, even though it increased recently. And also, when they take the leave, those women take the leave most of them take the leave within 3 months after they give birth. So they give birth and then take the maternity leave about 3 months, 2 or 3 months, and then take the leave, parental leave right away, if they take it. So that's their tendency. Whereas for men, they take the parental leave a bit much later, 1 or 2 years later, 2 or 3 years later. Yeah, so that's the information. And yeah, so and then the employment rate over the years, this is just to get some descriptive picture of this employment. So this is the employment rate. So if someone was giving birth, so then that means that they are employed because they are in the national employment insurance as a worker. But what about their employment rate, employment status 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 or 4 years later? So as you can see, the level is going down and down. So over the years, then people, they go out of the labor market. But over the years, those people who gave birth recently, their employment status is they're higher. So more people are in the labor market. What about then subsequent birth? So whether they gave birth after 1 year or within 2 years or 3 years. So as you can see, the more, so if we take longer scope for 1, 2, 3 years, the more people give birth, but that incidence of this having subsequent birth is going down and down. So like following the national trend. So that's the situation. So I will go briefly about the statistical analysis, which is very simple. So so the relationship between the expected parental leave benefit and some outcome variables like take-up rate, duration, or employment, and then subsequent birth. And so what I do is, as I said, we are comparing around the kink. It's called regression kink design. So what we are going to do is we are comparing those workers, as I said, the kink on the right-hand side and left-hand side. And then we are actually comparing the slope in terms of the wage, in the wage distribution. And so to make that comparison fair, like around the kink, so right-hand side, left-hand side, they are very much similar except the cash benefit. And then we can compare the difference between these two groups as the impact of this cash benefit. Okay, so that's the idea. To make this inference, we need two assumptions. First one is the wage distribution shouldn't change much at the kink. It's called the no sorting assumption. So that's one thing. The second one is around this kink, the outcome variable shouldn't be related to this cash benefit directly. So this assumption, so in other words, we want to say that the difference between these two groups is only because of the difference in the cash benefit. Okay, and then so otherwise these two groups are very similar, almost identical. So that's what we want to say. Of course, these two assumptions. Just let me briefly look at whether this is plausible. So first one, no sorting. So this is the wage distribution, and this is 0 is the kink level, as the kink, the upper bound. So I normalized the wage, monthly wage, as normalized as making the upper limit as a 0. Okay, so as you can see, the whole distribution, this is a bit lower part. We are taking some part around this 0, which is normalized wages. And if we can see, this distribution, if you look at distribution is very smooth, density is very smooth. So if I take the formal test, this density, how many people are around this kink, it didn't change really dramatically, because some people may move to, if I'm a bit above the threshold, I want to go down a little bit to get more benefit. So this is not really happening. So these two groups didn't change much in terms of the distribution. Second assumption is like this. So second assumption, of course, we cannot prove this fully. What we are going to do instead is to look at some other variables, whether it's smooth across around the kink. So around the kink, in the vertical, horizontal axis, there's income distribution, wage distribution. Age at birth, they didn't change much at the kink. It's like there's no jump. Or the female share at the workplace, it didn't really jump much. So it suggests that these two groups, they are very much identical. So around this at the kink. And then based on assuming that these two assumptions are met, why don't we look at some outcome variables? So basically we are comparing these two groups. So what we want to do is the left-hand side has more benefit, and right-hand side has less benefit because they above the threshold and their benefit doesn't increase with their income. So we expect that the slope is a bit lower on the right-hand side because these people are less advantage. Okay, so the left-hand side group, they are more advantage. So therefore their slope is a bit higher, and then the right-hand side slope is a bit lower. So that's what we expect. Of course, in this descriptive analysis, there is a little bit of the slope is a bit less. Take-up and duration, of course, but there is not much difference. Employment, 3 years after birth, employment around the kink, there is a little bit of like the slope is a bit less, but of course at this descriptive level, it's not really discernible. And also the additional birth. So again, not so. There isn't really like, wow, there's a significant difference. We cannot say that. Okay, so based on the descriptive analysis, there is some sign that there may be some decline in the slope, but not much. So we are going to do this formal estimation, but I'd like to mention that this estimate is really sensitive to the level of window. So whether we should look at the narrow window or wide window. Okay, yeah, so that depends on. So that's the issue. So we follow the other studies, some procedure to find this optimal level of a window, and then we've also to follow other studies just to be in line with other studies. Okay, so the final result is that, okay, so with this regression kink design estimate, basically we are comparing the slope of these two groups, and what we found is take-up rate and whether they take up, so if their benefit, if they have more benefit in terms of the share of their income, whether if the benefit increases more, whether they take the parental leave more often. Of course, it's positive and duration is positive, but they are not statistically significant. And then if I look at the parental leave duration among workers, it's even negative, but of course not significant. So among the employment status, they are generally positive, but only the employment at 4 years after birth is positive and negative. I mean, positive and significant. And about the fertility, like having the probability of having the second birth, I mean, the next birth, they are not really significant. So even though over these years, parental leave expanded and people take more parental leave, but the association, but it doesn't prove that there is a huge consequence. But nevertheless, there's employment, there's some kind of positive impact. And I compared this result between these two groups among these small and medium-sized enterprises and large firms. And this positive impact on this employment is observed in more of the small firms. And in large firms, it was significant, and about the subsequent birth, even sometimes it's a bit negative among the workers at the large firms. If I look at the period, like over the last 10 years, the early period, like from 2011 to 2015 or 15, again, among the early period, we observed the positive impact on the employment, whereas the later period, we observed some negative impact on fertility. So even though this parental leave benefit increased, so the main finding is that so far, of course, this is preliminary. So far, this analysis shows that increasing the parental leave benefit, cash benefit, seems to didn't much have impact on this take-up of the parental leave, but it did help women to return to work about 4 years after. So if they increase the monthly benefit by about 10,000 Korean won, so to be rough, it's 8 or 10 euros per month over the entire period, it increases the probability of working about 3.56 percentage point 3 years after. This seems to be a little bit high, quite large degree. So it's a bit more further, some investigation is needed. And also there's some variation across the firms and the period. And also, of course, there are a few caveats or some limitations. And we looked at a relatively short run, like 3 or 4 maximum. So maybe in the long run, the impact maybe even a bit smaller. And representative of the sample is also limited because we are only looking at around the kink. Okay, so that's another, so the limitation. Of course, this design of this parental leave in Korea is to promote men's take-up, but so that's something we still have to look at because then may have other more positive impact on women or so on and so forth. Okay. And there are some policy implication. Of course, so far, it's like the main message I'd like to have this here is that so it's like easy option to increase the cash benefit, but still, I think we still this study shows us still there is some kind of the trade-off, like kind of many constraints that female workers face. So. We should look at some other some environment or surrounding the parental leave to make this parental leave a more effective option for workers. Thank you.
Many thanks.